Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker, tēnā koe te whare, e ngā tangata whenua o Ngati Raukawa, Ngati Tuwharetoa, e te Arawa River iwi, tēnā koutou, nau mai haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to rise on behalf of the Labour Party and support the Minister in her introduction of this bill. This is part two of a substantial process and one that has taken a long time, and I wish also to add my recognition and the recognition of the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, to those who have worked for this outcome but who have not lived to see it, and I pay special respects to them. Mr. Speaker, this is a very significant moment. The introduction of this legislation honours a deed and an undertaking that was made by the Crown in a deed of settlement in 2008. When Dr. Michael Cullen had the privilege of being the Minister of Treaty Settlements, he negotiated this agreement and signed the agreement on the 4th of September in 2008. And the Minister, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, the Minister who has had the responsibility of being the shepherd and the guardian of this agreement through to this point, the Honourable Chris Finlayson, has made some changes to the legislation which I think represent improvements, and I am quite happy to acknowledge that. In its original agreement, there was provision for a number of statutory boards, and what we have in this agreement now, thank you, is a single authority as opposed to half a dozen statutory boards who were going to participate in the partnership with the Crown in the restoration of the health and well-being of this river. And I think that is an improvement, Mr. Speaker, and I acknowledge the Minister for that. I think it will be important that each of the iwi who have an attachment and connection to this great river ensures that they are able to participate in the process that this legislation enshrines and allows them to indeed have that oversight and that participation in the care of this river as envisaged by this legislation. Mr. Speaker, the Waikato River, from its beginning to its end, has nourished and supported countless people for numerous years. There is no doubt that it is the source of life. It runs through one of the most productive areas of our country, and our country is productive because of it. To watch the gradual atrophying pollution of this great river must have caused tangata whenua in particular some considerable distress. And I welcome this deed and the structures behind it and the participation of iwi in the true partnership which will see the restoration of the health of this river. It is indeed a great taonga. I remember once watching a documentary that was made by the Top Twins, who in fact took a trail of the Waikato River from its very beginning to the mouth of the river. Some of it they did on a surfboard, and some of it, where the water wasn't deep enough, they walked. It was a documentary in the style that the Top Twins make documentaries, but it was informative and spoke volumes about the significance and the contribution of this great river. Mr. Speaker, in the course of debating the other piece of legislation to which this relates, and that was the Waikato Tainui legislation, I referred to the fact that it is not beyond the wit of anybody in this country to recognise the value of such a life-giving thing as a river. It doesn't matter whether we come from different ontologies, from different worldviews. It doesn't matter whether we see things in the same terms or not. The shared and common understanding is that this river is a taonga. This river carries life from its beginning to its issuing into the sea. And it deserves protection. It deserves restoration for all who benefit from its progress. Mr. Speaker, this great river and the great task in front of all of us who share an interest in it needs help. This great river needs repair. And this partnership in the legislation here will provide a consistent and engaged way of making sure that this river is restored. It's very important to recognise the comments, although the Minister has already quoted some comments from both the Te Arawa River Iwi Trust Chairman Roger Pikia and the Ngati Raukawa Settlement Trust Chairman Chris Mackenzie. It is worth repeating those comments, because it's in this deep sense of something important happening here, Mr. Speaker, that we gather to support this legislation. These people who have travelled to Wellington to support the first reading of this bill understand exactly what their leaders have said today. Mr. Pikia said that the first reading, this moment that we are engaged in now, marked the final stage of a process to give effect to a partnership between River Iwi and the government to provide protection and nurturing of the national taonga that is the Waikato River. And this is a model. This is a model that's worth repeating. This is a way forward in the view of the Labour Party, and I know that the Minister, in fact both Ministers who are here tonight, share this view, that this is a way forward, that this is a way of engaging in a genuine partnership with obligations and commitments that stick, with goals that are shared and methods that are participated in equally in order to recognise and carry forward the application of the Treaty of Waitangi in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so I welcome this first reading. I want to congratulate the Minister on her first reading speech and the heart and the connection, the personal connection that goes into this piece of legislation. I can only imagine what it means for the Minister to in fact have that very close connection with the people, with the country, with the river, and be able to lead off in this debate. And I recognise also the Minister, Chris Finlayson, who will participate in this debate, I am sure, and all that represents from both of those people and the participation of the Crown and iwi in the management of this taonga. Kia ora, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Chris